there was a land of lots of scary creatures. There were ghosts, witches, goblins, and other things that went on in the night. And one scary night, the ghosts came running in circles, and they said, "Woo, woo." And there was the captain ghost, who bellowed to all,
"Ghosts be scary, ghosts get fright on this cold night."
And all of the ghosts looked and moved like very frightening creatures. They would fly around. And then one little ghost joined them and did not sound very scary. The little ghost watched the other ghosts fly. The little ghost tried to fly, but could not. The other ghost said, "What's wrong with you?"
What's wrong with you?
And the little ghost replied,
I don't know.
the little ghost looked very sad. All the other ghosts went back to being scary and looking scary and flying. The little ghost found she did not like being a ghost. Little ghost said, "I'm not a good ghost. I can't fly."
I'm not a good ghost. I can't fly.
The captain ghost came over to the little ghost. The other ghosts went off into the night, scaring people. The captain ghost said,
You do not look happy.
the little ghost replied,
I'm not. I can't fly.
the captain ghost sighed heavily. Then the captain said,
You're a young ghost. You will learn.
the little ghost still looked unhappy, and she said, "I don't like being a ghost. I want to be something else."
I don't like being a ghost. I want to be something else.
The captain looked at the little ghost. There was a silence. Finally, the captain said, "Then try to be something else. There are plenty of creatures to be."
Then try to be something else. There are plenty of creatures to be.
The little ghost was happy that the captain gave permission to be something else. The captain ghost said,
But remember, you cannot change who you are.
the little ghost nodded and said,
Okay.
the little ghost did not really understand what that meant, but she decided to explore the forest and find something else to be. The little ghost walked and walked and walked. A wind began to blow, and it kept getting louder and louder. Suddenly, the little ghost could hear lots of footsteps coming toward her. Mummies walked up to the little ghost, and they asked,
I'm just a little uncle. Who are you?
"Where, Mommy?"
What is your
The little ghost thought that the mummies were pretty cool. She wanted to know how to become one. The little ghost said,
I want to be a mummy.
You first have to walk like a mummy.
the mummies all put out their arms. The little ghost put out her arms. The mummies all made scary faces. The little ghost made a scary face too. The mummies all walked stiffly. The little ghost walked stiffly. The mummies said, the little ghost said, "I like being a mummy."
This is fun.
The mummies said, But it was no use. The mummies were gone. The little ghost looked sad again. She began wandering through the forest. The wind blew through the forest. The little ghost said, "I'll never be anything but a ghost."
I'll never be anything but a ghost.
Just then, there was some growling. The little ghost looked around. Suddenly, some goblins came leaping out and circled the little ghost. "We are goblins. Who are you?" they growled.
We are goblins. Who are you?
The little ghost looked at the goblins. They were interesting creatures. Their faces were all scrunched up, and they could not stand straight. They were all hunched over with their arms dangling at their sides. The little ghost said, "I am a ghost, but I would like to be a goblin."
I am a ghost, but I would like to be a goblin.
The goblins growled in delight. They said, "To be a goblin, you have to hunch over like us."
To be a goblin, you have to hunch over like us.
The little ghost hunched over as they were. The goblin said, "Good, now your face like this."
Good. Now your face like this.
And they all scrunched up their faces. The little ghost scrunched up her face. The goblin said, "Just one more thing."
Just
Growl.
one more thing. Growl.
Oh, the goblins growl mean and frightening growls. The little ghost opened her mouth and went,
Yippee!
The goblin said, "That is not a growl."
That is not a growl.
The little ghost looked so disappointed. The goblins began to leave. "Wait!" cried the little ghost.
Wait.
But the goblins left. The little ghost was left all alone again. The little ghost said, "I'll never be anything but a ghost who can't fly."
I'll never be anything but a ghost who can't fly.
And the little ghost continued through the night. The little ghost came to a cave. It was an old and smelly cave. She walked inside and found a bunch of people circled around a huge pot. They were all stirring something in the pot. The little ghost came quietly in. Any ghost can move quietly. And watched. The witches cackled as they stirred. They continued to stir the pot before they began pouring things in. One witch said, "Pour it slowly." They all chanted the words.
Ella, Ella, Zam. Ella, Ella,
They continued. "We are making potions because we love to." And the witches waved their hands over the bubbling pot. One witch said,
I'll get the magic wand.
and the witch got the magic wands and brought them to the others. When they all had them, they waved those over the pot. The little ghost thought what they were doing was fascinating. The little ghost said,
Wow, they're witches.
the witches said, "What was that?"
What was that? What was that?
And the little ghost timidly came out and said,
It was me.
the witches came over and circled the little ghost. They said, "Who are you?"
Who are you?
Who
said.
Why?
The little ghost said,
Because the spells you do are neat. I want to learn out.
the witches all looked at each other, amazed. They couldn't believe a ghost would want to be a witch. Ghosts can fly without broomsticks. But the witches decided to give the little ghost a chance. They said, to be a witch, you have to be able to do spells.
To be a witch, you must be able to do spells.
The little ghost said.
Okay.
One witch said, turn that rock into a frog.
Turn that rock into a frog.
The little ghost went over to the rock and said,
Spells of spells.
the little ghost paused to think and said, make this hard rock catch flies.
Makes this hard rock catch flies.
The little ghost knew spells that worked had to rhyme. So she said, turn it into a frog, right before our eyes.
Turn it into a frog, right before our eyes.
The little ghost said, zap,
Zap!
and there was a poof, and the rock began to ribbit. It was a frog. The frog hopped away. The witches all laughed. They were very impressed. They said, to be a witch, you also have to fly on a broom.
To be a witch, you must also have to fly on a broom.
The witches went and got their brooms. They gave one to the little ghost, and the other witch got on hers. They began to fly, and the little ghost followed them. The witches said, that is very good. They all landed back on the ground. They put all the brooms away. The witches then said, just one more thing.
Just one more thing.
The little ghost nodded her head and was ready for what was last. The witches said,
To be a witch, you must be able to cackle.
and all the witches began to cackle. They cackled and cackled. Then they said,
Now you try. Yippee!
the witches looked horrified. They said, that wasn't a cackle.
That wasn't a cackle.
The witches looked at each other in disbelief. They said, you can't be a witch. You must leave.
You can't be a witch. You must leave.
The little ghost protested and said, I can do it. Please let me stay.
I can do it. I
The witches went back to working on their potions at the pot. They stood in a circle around the pot. The little ghost watched them and then sadly walked away. Once again, the little ghost was all alone. The little ghost said, if only I could fly.
If only I could fly. I'm a good ghost.
The little ghost continued walking through the night. A little later, a monster came howling out of the bushes. The monster said, I am a monster. Who are you?
I am a monster. Who are you?
The little ghost replied.
I am a monster who cannot fly.
The monster said, really?
Really?
I'm a monster that's not very scary.
I'm a monster that's not very scary.
The The little ghost laughed. A monster that's not scary.
A monster that's not scared.
The monster looked hurt and said, yes, but I'm going to keep trying because that's what I am, a monster.
Yes. I'm going to keep trying because that's what I am, a monster.
The little ghost thought about this. Maybe, the little ghost thought, I gave up too quickly. But first, the little ghost decided to help the monster. The little ghost said, try to do this.
Try to do this.
And the little ghost made the scariest face ever. The monster did the same face. The little ghost jumped back in fright and said, that looked scary to me.
That looks scary to me.
The monster smiled and said, really?
Really?
The little ghost nodded. The monster said, now you have to fly.
Now you have to fly.
The little ghost jumped in the air. But nothing happened. Then the little ghost got really determined and decided this was it. The little ghost said, this time I'm going to do it.
This time I'm going to do it.
And the little ghost flew. Her arms were out and she was flying all around the monster. As the little ghost flew away, she said, thank you.
Thank you.
The monster waved goodbye and said,
Anytime.
and the monster faded from sight. The little ghost was so happy, she flew all the way home to the other ghosts. They were all there, being scary. The little ghost landed right in front of the captain ghost. The captain ghost said,
You're back.
the little